Hello, hello, hello. I'm Christopher Nandy from ADHDforthewin.com. And today I wanted to talk about asking for accommodations at work. This comes up a lot when I talk to folks with ADHD. And it's one of those things that can really change your entire working experience. So just real quick before we jump in, some caveats about privilege. Whether or not to disclose your ADHD at work is a deeply personal decision. I am extremely open about my ADHD, obviously, because I have this website and this show, but that's because I want to destigmatize it, be clear about my needs and how I work best, and avoid any confusion or awkwardness later. However, I am also a cisgendered, heterosexual white dude with a social safety net, and that comes with immense amounts of privilege. Some of my friends with ADHD and more marginalized demographics have told me that they would never disclose their ADHD at work. As one of them put it, I already feel like people scrutinize my work more closely because I'm a member of a marginalized group. And telling them I have ADHD just gives them another reason to nitpick my work. And that's completely valid. For me, disclosure has been nearly all upsides, but my privilege also has a lot to do with that. Not everyone has as good an experience with it as I've had. But if you do decide you want to disclose it, how do you ask? Well, it depends. If you have a good relationship with your manager, you can simply tell them, hey, Joe, want to let you know that I have ADHD, which can impact how I work. I wanted to mention a few things that would help me do my best work. And this is usually the approach that I take. Every time I've done it, I've found out that the other person that I'm talking to also has ADHD, which has almost certainly helped because then they instantly get it and they're happy to work with me. And I suspect I've been immensely fortunate here. I can't imagine everybody's experience will be like this. If you don't have that kind of relationship with your manager, your HR department should have a formal process for requesting accommodations because your ADHD is a protected disability. This is true in the United States, in Canada, in the UK, in much of the EU. Under the Americans with Disabilities Act, your workplace is required to provide reasonable accommodations for people with disabilities, and ADHD counts. Canada, the UK, and various places in the EU have similar laws. So this is a protected thing. And you also can't be fired for your ADHD alone. If an employer refuses to make accommodations and then fires you for performance, you can file a complaint. In the US, you do that with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Practically speaking, though, your avenues for recourse are slow, painful, and insufficient. So you're probably not going to do that. It's worth noting, though, that if your employer does provide accommodations, you can still be legally fired for performance issues. I've also had at least one person tell me that they went to the HR department for accommodations and were told that they, quote, don't have a form for that, which frankly doesn't matter one bit. Their legal obligations exist with or without a form. But you might end up fighting corporate bureaucracy a bit, which is why I often start with my manager. So, what kind of accommodations can and should you ask for? Just upfront, I want to say that you shouldn't expect your employers to have a stock list of accommodations that they'll offer. Everyone's ADHD experience is unique. So instead, you might want to give some thought to how you work best and what kinds of things would make your work life better. Here are some ideas to get you started. You might ask for a work from home arrangement so you can avoid the distractions of an office, or a quiet private space to work in if you have to be in the office. You might ask for meeting free days or asynchronous stand-ups or stand-ups at different times of day to avoid interrupting you mid-hyperfocus. You might want to work irregular hours if your peak performance doesn't happen during normal 9 to 5 hours, which is really common for folks with ADHD. If there's specific types of work that you find more interesting, you might ask to focus on those instead of other things. For example, you might ask for fewer mundane tasks and more big, hairy problem type work, or the ability to pick your own projects from a list rather than just being assigned stuff. That way you can work with your own interests and passions and really take advantage of your hyperfocus instead of fighting against your boredom. You could ask for shorter meetings, fewer meetings, or fully asynchronous meetings, more frequent breaks throughout the day, or to have all requests in writing instead of verbal, where you're more likely to forget them. Your specific list of needs is going to vary, obviously, but you may also want to avoid throwing a dozen things out there at once. Pick maybe 2 or 3 or one big one and start there. You can always ask for more later. One of the other things that comes up is whether or not you need a formal diagnosis. And the answer is no. I've never been asked to prove that I have ADHD, but I've also always gone directly to my manager. You don't need a formal diagnosis to go to your HR department, although they might ask you for one. Or they might ask you for a list of, kind of your symptoms or conditions that result from your ADHD. It can be helpful, though, if you have an official diagnosis and you have one of those like really annoying HR departments that's really like, we want documentation. It can be helpful to have a formal diagnosis. But if you don't have one, you can still ask for accommodations under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So just something worth considering. Anyways, that's it for today. If you want more content like this, please feel free to subscribe to this podcast, this show. And also, if you feel like your ADHD is holding you back, or you're struggling to get stuff done, to really thrive the way you feel like you should be, I send out a short email each weekday on how to help developers with ADHD thrive. Head over to ADHDforthewin.com to sign up, and I will see you next time. Cheers. Have a great day.